Before I got into this game franchise, I had no idea how extensive the Wolfenstein series went. And I knew that they went as far back as the 90s, but I didn't know it went all the way back to 1981. Although that really shouldn't surprise me, seeing as that's kind of Bethesda's thing when it comes to these older titles. In any case, today we're talking about Wolfenstein the Old Blood. And I know that it's technically the second game in the Machine Games series. I wanted to play it in the timeline of the actual events that are happening, so that way I get a better scope of the whole story. Like I said, this is the second game in their series, and it was originally designed to be DLC for Wolfenstein the New Order, but because it has such depth to it, Machine Games decided, screw it, we'll just make it its own standalone game. And I think this is a really good idea, seeing as there are a lot of people that didn't play the New Order, and this is a good way for them to get their feet into it, be it because it's a cheaper price tag. At the time it was $20 rather than spending $60, and it gave context, like I mentioned before, about the events that happened in Wolfenstein the New Order at the beginning of the game. And when you think about the title, The Old Blood, it tells you everything you need to know. This game is meant to pay homage to the older games in the franchise and in a sense say goodbye. Machine Games clearly had love for the classic Wolfenstein titles, and this game felt like a deliberate nod to the legacy. From the setting to the supernatural twist, you can tell that they wanted to mix the old school feel with the modern style they've been refining. The story is split up into two acts. And in the first act, BJ Blazkowicz, along with Agent 1, infiltrate Wolfenstein Keep to get intel on the location of General Death's Head because the United States is losing World War II. And once inside the castle, things don't go according to plan, because of course they don't. Guns get fired, and the two try and escape. And honestly, I have no fucking idea how they thought they were gonna get off of this fucking castle, because they took a damn gondola to get to it in the first place. So after getting in prison, BJ explores Castle Wolfenstein while trying to escape. And along the way, we keep running into this man named Rudy Yeager, who is basically the attack dog of Helga von Schabs, the commanding officer and technical owner of Castle Wolfenstein. And well, let's just say Rudy don't like us very much.
Okay. Nazis are all dead. You can...
Americans!
Never mind.
You take my car! You take my grave!
And after escaping from the castle, we work our way to a tavern where we meet up with another informant named Kessler, and then we escape from the town, and then we move into Act 2. Now, Act 2 takes a very drastic turn from Act 1, because Act 1 was predominantly you stealthing around and trying to escape the castle because it's hundreds of Nazis and one BJ. Thinking about it now, I probably should have worded that wrong, differently. But we're here anyway, so fuck it. After getting out of town, we run over to another town where BJ tries the whole infiltration shit again, and it doesn't work again. And in doing so, we meet Helga von Schabs, and she is kind of a lunatic, I'm not gonna lie. She's a little weird. Although, she had one part in her little speech as she figured out who BJ was and that he wasn't a German because he has a shit accent. And in that speech, she said,
Träume. Und dann starb mein Bein ab. Habe ich deswegen geheult? Aber natürlich. Ist ja normal. Aber aufgeben ist was für Schwächlinge. Ich habe nie aufgegeben. Ich habe mein Schicksal in die Hand genommen.
And I'm not gonna lie, I resonate with it. But everything else, I can't. Anywho, because she's the descendant of a man named King Otto, who was the original owner of Castle Wolfenstein, as well as being an architect. She wanted to figure out the things that King Otto was doing back in his day and why there were secret rooms in the castle that weren't on the map. In doing so, she runs across many crypts that she has her lackeys open up and figure out what they were doing, which is essentially a bunch of science experiments. And I do not understand why every time somebody sees some shit sealed up, they're like, hey, let's go open it and see what's in it. If it was closed up, it's for a reason. Leave it the fuck alone. But we see she didn't, and because of some dynamite that they used to explode open one of the crypts, it causes an earthquake in the town. And immediately after this, we have a zombie outbreak. And at this point in the game, I was taken aback because I was like, what the fuck happened? We went from espionage to Call of Duty zombies. And because of this drastic change in tone and pacing and just overall story, I had to take a minute just to put together what was happening. And in doing so, I looked up some Reddit posts to trying to figure out, like, is this normal? Why did this happen? And in doing so, I found out that this supernatural shit is also a part of the Wolfenstein DNA. And because of that, I realized that the game and the franchise aren't necessarily taking themselves too seriously. And when I realized that, I also decided, okay, there's two choices I can do. I can say fuck this game, or I can just choose to accept it. And I did. And after my acceptance of the supernatural, I found myself having some fun, but then in other situations, I found myself being annoyed because every time I killed a Nazi, there was a chance that they were turned into a zombie, further wasting more ammo that I have to scrounge around to find. Mind you, I'm playing on a higher difficulty, so some of these enemies are kind of sponges, which makes keeping ammo a slight problem. Not too heavy because they do bless you with many guns to get ammo from. Now, in the whole story, I will say that my favorite scene from this game was when BJ went back to the boat that Kessler and this chick named Annette were at. They were gone, assumingly because of the zombie outbreak, which is weird because if there's a fucking outbreak, why would you leave the boat that nobody knows you're at? And because of that, one, because in this situation, BJ has to choose which way to go, and in doing so, you have to make a choice on who you choose to save in a specific situation. If you go one way, you save Kessler. If you go the other, you save Annette. But you cannot save both. All I'm gonna say is that it's just a dumbass idea to leave the boat that you are safe at. I just don't understand why they did it. But I digress. BJ was at the boat and found a shotgun. And I love this scene because the second he finds the shotgun, mind you, it's bent, so he has to do this, but he finds a saw and proceeds to saw the fucking barrel off that bitch. And the funny shit is that a zombie pulls up and he's like, ah shit. There's nothing special about this scene, but it made me laugh. And I like that, and I appreciate that. But moving on, out of the city, we go to like a graveyard type situation, still sneaking around because there's still hella Nazis, and now we gotta deal with zombies. But once we get past all of them, we end up in the crypt, and in the end of the crypt, we find Helga and Schneider, who doesn't necessarily matter. We find them, and BJ fell for like one of the oldest chicks in the book. He got strung up by a chain, but Helga, in all her infinite wisdom, decided, I'm going to find out what King Otto was doing. And in doing so, we find out that there was a giant fucking zombie golem, which is the reason King Otto had all those rooms sealed up. And Helga, thinking she can control it, she's like, here, I got you fresh American, here you go. Like this motherfucker was some goddamn cheese. But nah, Big Golem said, nah, I want you. And this is the shit I be talking about. Because science, like if some shit happened and people specifically go out of their way to keep shit from being found out, they probably did it for a good fucking reason. And you need to heed their warning, i.e. stay the fuck out. But we wouldn't have a game if they did that. Now, so after defeating the golem, that's pretty much the end. Because we find Helga in a room, beat the fuck up because she just got tossed by this damn golem. You could choose to let her finish her speech, which is only like really Her just saying, I was so close. After dealing with that shit, I ain't even let her get halfway done with that sentence. I was like, nope, fuck you. Get this folder and get the fuck out, because I'm tired of this bullshit. Anyway, that's the end of the game. And that's how we segue into the beginning of Wolfenstein: The New Order. Now, I briefly brushed over the characters. Aside from Rudy and Helga, there really isn't a lot to be based off of for these characters. I guess technically Kessler and Annette give you a little bit after you save them, but it's not super important as they're probably gonna die anyway. And speaking of death, every person BJ comes into contact dies. Once again, you have a choice between saving Kessler and Annette, but ultimately, they're probably gonna die anyway because now you're going out into a zombie outbreak again after I just saved your ass, and then there's still a fucking war going on, and there's a whole bunch of Nazis everywhere. So I don't really understand how you're gonna survive this situation, but you're still probably gonna die. I digress. There are some scattered notes in the environment that do give you a little bit of context for certain characters. For example, there's a note from Rudy's mother saying that he doesn't come to visit her after he got his promotion. And these little tidbits give you a little bit more lore on the characters, but honestly, it doesn't really do too much. And I mean, for an 8-hour game, I don't really care, because these characters are about to die. Now, when we get to the gameplay aspect, I was okay with the gameplay for the most part. The first half, like I explained, is predominantly espionage, which means we were stealthing around basically the whole time. And I'm okay with doing stealth. I get impatient, and so that stealth shit was getting old real fucking fast. And I know it's probably something I should have expected, and I understand why it was heavily prevalent in the castle situation, because BJ's trying to get out. He doesn't want to get caught and, end up dying. Well, even though he does eventually get caught by Rudy again, the point being, I'm just not the best at stealth. So stealth is kind of like, to me, but I enjoy it every once in a while. But on top of that, they have all these weapons to use, and I want to use the fucking weapons. So sometimes I kind of just said, fuck the stealth, and went guns blazing. But that's not to say that the gunplay is infallible. There were some gripes I had. Predominantly, the auto rifle didn't really feel good to me, and it's mostly because the iron sights just threw me off a little bit. Aside from that, everything else was pretty cool. The shot camera was my go-to, because that motherfucker was laying people out. The sniper was cool. I tried to use the scope that they give you, and I found that just using the iron sight for me just felt better. The scope, I don't know, it felt weird too. Most of these weapons I'm okay with until we get to the double barrel shotgun. And I know a second ago I just talked about how BJ sawed off the shotgun and whatever, and I thought this fucking gun was gonna be the shiznit. It was not, and I'll explain. Because late in the game, before you get to the final boss, there's a room that you have to wait for the doors to open, and in doing so, there's a wave of zombies that keep coming at you until the doors open. And in this room, there's health packs, armor, everything you would expect. They got they have a literal pocket rocket in the game. I thought I just had to mention that because that shit was amazing. But they have that ammo, and specifically, they have a hell of a lot of shotgun ammo, and so it's incentivizing use the shotgun. So I'm like, I bet. Why the fuck does it reload so slow? It makes no sense how slow this fucking shotgun reloaded. It felt like every time the gun reloaded, BJ was serenading that motherfucker. And if you ran before the full animation was done, you gotta restart the whole fucking animation again. That shit didn't make no fucking sense, and it pissed me off. Mind you, not only are these zombies, these are running zombies. I'll leave it at that. Speaking of running, the running in this game was kind of weird because I found myself overrunning in certain situations. Like, I remember after Rudy caught me and I was trying to run into this corridor to get to the second floor, I kept finding myself, as I'm running, I would end up hitting the top of the entranceway, and it would fuck up my momentum. Shit was annoying. And then sometimes when I'm trying to run at enemies, I would end up like running too far. And in this specific situation, in that same zombie room, I ran trying to shotgun this zombie, but I ran too far forward and it wouldn't stop, and I got smacked for it. And the fucking melee damage in this game, man, fuck. And there's perks in the game. Speaking of perks, they have a reload perk that helps you reload faster. Did not help the shotgun. Anyway, They also have a melee reduction perk that I did not get because I had to get like 15 stealth kills, and mind you, I just said I'm not really into stealth like that, so I didn't get the perk. So everything fucking hurt when it swung at you. Aside of that, gameplay was fine to me. I like the way the guns sounded. For the most part, the guns felt pretty solid. I just previously stated my gripes about it, but dual wielding with the assault rifle felt like, I was like, man, it felt good. And reloading it felt pretty good too. Reloading the guns in the game is 50-50. Like if you had the reload perk, it helped a little bit, but at the time I forgot it existed, and it just was what it was. On top of trying to like not die because everything was fucking mowing me down, I was having fun. And in terms of like the art and the sound, everything felt, it felt nice. Once again, for the most part, we were in a dank ass castle that was renovated for science experiments. So it looked as apt, along with all these juggernauts and hella enemies. And it just felt like an endless castle that I'm trying to get out of. And I like that. It gave me a little bit of a sense of, I need to get the fuck out. On top of these big ass robot dog that's running around, I don't want nothing to do with that motherfucker. I'm trying to get the fuck out of here. But once you see Castle Wolfenstein in its glory, it's like, I get why he made the castle like this. It's pretty intimidating, I'm not gonna hold you. But overall, despite my little grievances that I had, I think this game was pretty fun. It was a nice 8-hour experience that I would recommend to anyone that has not played this game nor this franchise. I picked up all 4 games for $40 because they were on sale. So I definitely think if anyone wants to ever get into this franchise, slide you that $40 when the game goes on sale again. Bada bing, bada boom, 4 games. But that's pretty much all I got for y'all today. If you enjoyed this, please feel free to like, subscribe. There will be more of these coming. I'm doing Wolfenstein The New Order next, and comment your favorite part of the game. And until then, I'll catch y'all later.